everybody, welcome back to another Touchpoint Group Banking App Insights session. This for the UK banks, looking at March 2023, and we're really going to focus on a tale of three banks. This month we've got Barclays, who have introduced a new update that is really not performing well. I think that's update 2.74.1. Some challenges there that they need to overcome. We've got HSBC, which have finally been making some really positive moves in the upward direction, and nationwide we're going to be looking at some of the functionality issues that are causing them a couple of problems. But with Tony Patrick, as usual, we will dive deep and lift the lid on what is actually the story behind those moves. Tony,
Great.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Yeah, great. So, look, as usual, we'll just jump in straight away and actually see what's going on and look at the scores to start with. So let's just jump straight in. And just jumping in here, one of the things we can see here is that these are the challenges, and essentially there's not much movement here. It's fairly flat, although we get the likes of Monese jumping around a fair bit month on month. So they obviously need to move up a level. They haven't been above 3 for a long time. And the likes of, at the top here, we've got Starling sort of nicely from that slight downward movement in November, they've had like slight increases on time. They're getting towards that sort of, that level of 4.75, which sort of seems improbable, but they're getting towards that. So, some movements across the board there. Let's just step into, though, some interesting numbers here. I'll add in HSBC just so we can see it, because it does change our scale because of the issues they had middle of last year. And you can see there, actually, with HSBC, they did have a bit of a pickup in March, and we'll explore that in a moment. But if I hide that to get our scale back in perspective, what I can see, which is obvious here, the elephant in the room here is Barclays. The massive drop for Barclays from February to March. What's happened there? So let's just jump into that and find out why, because that's an important thing to understand. First of all, this particular view here is looking at what we call our surf analysis. So looking at problems in these areas, so security and authentication, usability, reliability, and functionality. So where are the problems occurring? And if you get these things right, your score can do really well. Get them wrong, your score can drop in the same way that Barclays has done here. So they've gone from a score of around 4.1 down to a score of 3.4. So clearly some issues across the board. And one of the things we can see, the numbers we're seeing here, so this 32.6 is what happened in March. So 33% of customers giving this feedback talked about some sort of reliability issue for Barclays. That has doubled from the previous month. Similarly, for all these other measures, they have doubled. And obviously, doubling's bad when these are all pain points. So clearly, there's problems coming up. Unreliable app is an issue. So let's just jump into that briefly and see what's going on. Because in here, we can actually see what customers are saying down to the detail. And in here, we can actually see things are saying, since the last update, the app's very unstable, keeps crashing, it crashes a lot, it shuts down. So clearly people are talking about this new update is causing an issue for them. So let's step in further and have a look at what's actually going on. So this is the engaged customer score, that score we saw previously, but this is down to weeks for Barclays. We can see there, week commencing the 6th of March is when it really hit rock bottom here. But let's look at this in terms of days and just see what happened. So when did this really kick in? So we see there at around the 1st of March, it was okay. 2nd and 3rd, it starts to drop away. And particularly, we get down to that 5th of March, it drops away definitely. So it's clearly going from a level around 4 and above down to around 3.2. So clearly problems have happened at that point in time. But what happened at that point in time? Let's have a look. These are the app releases coming through from Barclays. And we can see exactly that time period we're talking about, from that 1st to the 5th of March. Look what starts to pick up, this new app release of 2.74.1. And that's the one that started to cause these issues. Prior to that, the previous versions are getting nice scores of about 4.3. This one, if I mouse over it here, average scores of 3.3. So this is the one that's now dominating most of March, and it's the one that's causing those issues. And again, I can click on that and understand a bit of detail. But again, this is actually just being caused by that update that's caused those major problems across time. So let's just move away from that for a moment and focus on some other areas. So We saw that HSBC has picked up, so we'll review that in a moment. Another movement out of here is Nationwide, which has dropped away slightly, only by about 0.2, but it's enough to sort of go, well, what's going on here? I need to understand that so I can make some improvements. The likes of TSB, I won't focus too much on that, but we can see that they have dropped away, and inconsistencies is probably one of the things I can see here. If they actually performed as well as they did in January and continued that high, that would be really positive. They could be up there with some of the top players. And the likes of Monzo is always just slightly below others, but just in terms of time, let's focus on a couple of things today. So first of all, HSBC. Let's have a quick look at that. So we can see there that the score has gone from 3.7 up to 4.1. Yes, so very positive. We can see it's actually moved forward. One of the things we can see down here is the drop in these issues. So functionality issues have dropped from about 17 to 13. Usability issues have dropped from about 17 to about 10. So, very positive move forward there. So one of the things we can also see is what they've actually done. So what have they done across that time period? So one of the things they did do in February is added a spending insights feature. So that was a really positive move for them because this is now impacting that score we're seeing right now. So in February, we didn't see much of that impact because not every customer was using it. But into March, they've started to use that feature. And we can see that in here when we have a look at, this is the version history. And we're looking here at version 3.31.2 is when that launch happened, sort of just prior to that, of course, but it's coming through into 3.31.2. And we can see here on the right, great app, keep tracking of spending and bills with the spending overview being available to permanently assign a category. It's great for me. So there's really positive movement in terms of what's possible when you add new features in. So tracking those features as they launch and how customers feel is really amazing. And we can see here that's had a positive impact and lifted that score for HSBC. But let's have a look at what else is going on. So one of the other things we're seeing is, this is the score for Nationwide. So one of the things we've seen here is that the score was sitting up nicely at 4.2. It's dropped down to 4.0. So still high, but that drop, you need to understand that. Otherwise, that will continue. You need to be on top of these things that are going on. So we can see there's functionality issues have increased slightly. So there's not much of a change here, but just keeping on top of these things. One of the things I've looked at on the right here is actually looking at this topic around poor app viewing transactions. One of the things that keeps coming through is there's no way to edit a reference. These payee references always coming through. Can't change a payee reference, can't change the payee reference. So lots of information in here about this is one particular thing they can fix to make a major change for this particular area about viewing transactions. So for Nationwide, at least one thing there they can fix, and obviously exploring more, we can find some others. For HSBC, they've done really well in making that extra functionality, which makes a major difference for customers. So HSBC on the right track. Nationwide need to pick some problems to fix them inside here as well. So thank you, Glenn.
Wow, all of that jammed into 8.5 minutes. You're a legend as usual, Tony. Thank you very much. And if you want to talk about your bank and you want to dig a little bit deeper, now you can see the level of insights that you can get, feel free to sing out and hit us up. Have a great week.